Hi, welcome back. Today we're diving into the fascinating yet alarming world of climate change. Picture this: Earth is a giant snow globe, but instead of snow, we've got greenhouse gases shaking things up. Before you start daydreaming about snowball fights, let me tell you how these gases are causing a ruckus on our planet. So we've got this blanket of gases like carbon dioxide and methane keeping Earth nice and toasty. But thanks to our love for fossil fuels, deforestation, and cow burps, yes, you heard that right, we're thickening that blanket, trapping more heat than we'd like. It's like wearing a winter coat in the middle of summer, not exactly the most comfortable situation. This extra heat is causing a domino effect, and we're not just talking about sweaty armpits here. We're seeing melting ice caps, which could put Santa out of a home, and rising sea levels that make beachfront property less of an investment and more of a gamble. Oh, and those adorable polar bears. They're struggling to find enough ice to live on, and trust me, you don't want to see a polar bear on a bad day. But the impacts of climate change don't stop there. We're also dealing with extreme weather events like storms that make your umbrella feel more like a toothpick. Remember those summer days when you could fry an egg on the sidewalk? Well, they're becoming more frequent, and let me tell you, it's not as fun as it sounds. Now, you might be thinking, all right, but what about the plants and animals? Well, climate change is like that one guest who shows up uninvited and causes chaos at the party. It's messing with the natural timing of things. Flowers are blooming too early, birds are migrating at the wrong time, and bees are just plain confused. This mix-up in timing is causing a chain reaction, making it harder for ecosystems to function as they should. Speaking of ecosystems, let's not forget about our oceans. You know that fizzy feeling in your nose when you drink soda. Well, the oceans are experiencing something similar, but not in a fun, bubbly way. As they absorb more CO2, they're becoming more acidic, which is a real buzzkill for coral reefs and the critters that call them home. It's like trying to build a sandcastle while someone keeps kicking it down. Not cool, right? And if all of that wasn't enough, climate change is also hitting our wallets. As crops struggle with unpredictable weather, food prices can go up, making your favorite snack a luxury item. Plus, extreme weather events can damage infrastructure, which means more tax dollars spent on repairs. It's like Mother Nature is giving us a big, costly wake-up call. Picture our planet as a ginormous oven, gradually increasing in temperature, baking us all like a batch of cookies. Unfortunately, the Earth's thermostat is broken and global temperatures are rising as a result of climate change. Hold onto your oven mitts because this temperature shift is bringing a whole new set of challenges to the table. First up, let's talk about the polar ice caps. You know, those massive popsicles at the top and bottom of our world. Well, they're melting faster than an ice cream cone on a hot summer day. As global temperatures rise, the ice caps are becoming more like slushes than solid blocks of ice, and that's not so cool for our planet. Why should we care about melting ice caps, you ask? Great question. You see, as these icy giants melt, they contribute to rising sea levels, which can lead to flooding in low-lying areas, erosion of coastlines, and increased risk of storm surges. Picture your favorite beachside town slowly being swallowed by the ocean, not the kind of beach vacation you'd want to take. Now, let's talk about heat waves. Remember that one time you tried to fry an egg on the sidewalk because it was so hot outside? Well, with climate change, those sweltering days are becoming more frequent and more intense. Imagine a never-ending sauna that you can't escape from. That's what we're dealing with here. These heat waves don't just make us cranky and sweaty, they also have severe consequences for our health. Vulnerable populations, like the elderly and those with pre-existing health conditions, are especially at risk during these scorching temperatures. Snow, ice, and chilly temperatures. That's right, we're talking about the polar ice caps. But there's a twist. They're melting faster than a snow cone in the Sahara, and that's causing some serious consequences for our planet. So, let's dive into this frosty fiasco. First, let's tackle the big question: why are the ice caps melting? Well, our planet's been hitting the gym and working up a sweat, all thanks to our favorite troublemaker, climate change. As global temperatures rise, the ice in the Arctic and Antarctic is saying adios and turning into water. It's like Earth's ice cream sundae is melting away and there's no freezer big enough to save it. Now, if you think this is just bad news for polar bears and penguins, think again. As the ice melts, it's adding water to the oceans, causing sea levels to rise. You know that game, the floor is lava. Well, imagine playing it with actual water, and the whole world is your living room. Not so fun, huh? But that's not all. The polar ice caps are like Earth's air conditioners. As sunlight hits the ice, it gets reflected back into space, helping to keep our planet cool. But as the ice melts, it exposes darker ocean water, which absorbs more sunlight and heats up the planet even more. It's like swapping your light-colored summer clothes for dark, heat-absorbing ones, not a wise choice if you want to stay cool. Let's not forget about our icy pal, Greenland. It's home to the world's second-largest ice sheet, and it's losing ice faster than you can say. Climate change is no joke. If Greenland's ice sheet were to melt completely, sea levels could rise by a whopping 20 feet. So, if you're planning on buying beachfront property, you might want to reconsider your investment strategy. Now, let's hop on over to the Antarctic. This frosty continent is not just a giant ice cube, it's actually made up of two parts, East Antarctica and West Antarctica. While the ice in East Antarctica is pretty stable, the ice in West Antarctica is living on the edge. If it were to collapse, we could see another 10 feet of sea level rise. That's enough to turn our coastal cities into modern-day Atlantis. And if you think this is all happening in slow motion, think again. A recent study found that the rate of ice lost from Antarctica has increased nearly sixfold since the 1970s. It's like Earth's ice caps decided to join the Fast and Furious Club, and we're all along for the wild ride. Grab your life vests, because things are about to get a bit damp. You might have heard that sea levels are rising, and it's true. Our oceans are expanding like an overly ambitious water balloon. And before you ask, no, it's not because whales are drinking too much water. The main culprits are melting glaciers and ice sheets and the fact that water expands as it warms up. It's like Earth's bathtub is slowly filling up, but there's no drain to release the excess water. Now, you might wonder, why should I care if the sea levels rise a few inches? Well, let me tell you, those inches can make a big difference. Rising sea levels can lead to flooding in low-lying areas. Imagine your favorite beach disappearing underwater, never to be seen again. It's a beach bum's worst nightmare. But that's not all. As the waves creep higher, they nibble away at coastlines, causing erosion. This gnawing process can damage coastal ecosystems and infrastructure, like that fancy beachfront hotel you've been eyeing for your next vacation. And if you think storms are wild now, just wait until you see what rising sea levels can do. Higher sea levels can lead to more intense storm surges, which are like watery wrecking balls smashing into coastal areas. It's like having a front-row seat at a demolition derby, but with less cheering and more water damage. Now, let's talk numbers. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, global sea levels rose about 3.1 millimeters per year between 1993 and 2010. That might not seem like much, but it adds up. In the coming decades, the rate of sea level rise is expected to increase, leading to even more severe impacts. It's like the ocean is going from a leisurely stroll to a full-on sprint. So, what does this all mean for our planet? Well, for one, we might need to invest in more waterproof gear. But on a more serious note, millions of people who live in low-lying coastal areas could be at risk of losing their homes, livelihoods, and even entire communities. It's like a game of musical chairs, but with less music and more displacement. But don't start building an ark just yet. There's still time to slow down the rising tide. In our next lesson, we'll explore the steps we can take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help stabilize sea levels. Because let's face it, nobody wants to trade their beach towel for a life raft. One of the hottest topics in climate change, heat waves. So, grab a cool drink, put on some sunscreen, and let's dive into this sweltering subject. First things first, what exactly is a heat wave? Well, it's like a visit from your least favorite relative. It's hot, it's uncomfortable, and it sticks around way longer than you'd like. In scientific terms, a heat wave is a prolonged period of excessively hot weather, often accompanied by high humidity. You know, the kind of weather that makes you want to live in a freezer. Now, you might be thinking, I like warm weather, what's the big deal? Well, while a little sunshine can be nice, too much heat can be downright dangerous. Extreme heat can cause a range of health issues, from heat exhaustion to heat stroke. It's like your body is a delicate souffle, and too much heat can cause it to collapse. Who's most at risk during a heat wave? Vulnerable populations, like the elderly and the poor, are particularly susceptible. Older folks might not be able to regulate their body temperature as effectively, and those with limited resources might not have access to air conditioning or cool spaces. It's like they're stuck in a sauna with no escape hatch. But that's not all. Heat waves can also have ripple effects on other aspects of our lives. For example, they can strain our electricity grids as everyone cranks up their air conditioning, leading to power outages. Picture this. You're trying to beat the heat with your favorite ice cream, but the power goes out and your sweet treat turns into a soupy mess. Bummer, right? Now, let's chat about how climate change plays a role in all this. As global temperatures rise, we can expect heat waves to become more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting. It's like Earth is going through a never-ending hot flash, and we're all feeling the heat. In fact, some studies suggest that by the end of this century, heat waves could become 100 times more likely in some regions, depending on our greenhouse gas emissions. That's a whole lot of sweaty days ahead if we don't take action to curb climate change. But fear not, my sun-soaked students. There are steps we can take to help protect ourselves and our communities from the dangers of heat waves. We can invest in early warning systems to alert people to upcoming heat events, create more green spaces to help cool urban areas, and ensure that vulnerable populations have access to cooling centers and other resources. So, as we move forward into a warmer world, let's remember that we have the power to make a difference. By working together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change, we can help turn down the thermostat on our planet and keep things a bit more comfortable for everyone. Extreme weather. We're talking hurricanes, floods, and droughts. Oh my! As climate change flexes its muscles, our planet is experiencing more frequent and intense bouts of Mother Nature's wrath. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into this meteorological maelstrom. First off, let's talk hurricanes. These swirling storms are like nature's angriest toddlers, throwing tantrums that can wreak havoc on coastal communities. And as climate change turns up the heat, we're likely to see even more of these tempestuous types. Warmer ocean temperatures can fuel hurricanes, making them stronger and longer lasting. It's like Mother Nature's been sneaking protein shakes into their diets, and now they're ready to rumble. Now let's wade into the soggy subject of floods. As climate change messes with weather patterns, some areas are getting drenched with more rain than they can handle. This can lead to massive floods that swallow up homes, roads, and even entire towns. It's like the Earth's having a giant water balloon fight, but nobody remembered to bring their raincoats. On the flip side, we have droughts. While some regions are dealing with too much water, others are parched as a desert tortoise. Climate change can cause shifts in precipitation patterns, leaving some areas high and dry. These droughts can lead to crop failures, water shortages, and even wildfires. It's like our planet's going through a rough breakup and can't decide whether to cry a river or go full-on scorched earth. Now, you might be thinking, sure, extreme weather events are a bummer, but what's the big deal? Well, let me tell you, these meteorological mood swings can have serious consequences for human societies. Loss of life, damage to infrastructure, and disruption of economic activity are just a few of the headaches we're facing. Take hurricanes, for example. When they make landfall, they can cause devastating storm surges and torrential rains, leading to massive flooding and widespread destruction. It's like a wrecking ball meets a fire hose with disastrous results. Floods, too, can cause catastrophic damage. They can wash away buildings, destroy crops, and contaminate water supplies. Imagine trying to rebuild your life after a flood has turned your home into a soggy mess. It's not a pretty picture. And let's not forget about droughts. They can lead to food shortages, skyrocketing prices, and even social unrest. It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs, but with dwindling water and food resources instead of seats. So, what can we do to weather the storm of extreme weather events? For starters, we can work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and slow the pace of climate change. We can also invest in infrastructure and planning to make our communities more resilient to these meteorological menaces. Climate change is shaking things up like a snow globe. So, grab your umbrellas and rain boots because things are about to get a little unpredictable. You see, Earth's climate is a complex system, kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine. When you mess with one part, it can set off a chain reaction, leading to all sorts of unexpected consequences. In this case, climate change is the meddling rascal, and precipitation patterns are caught in the crossfire. Now, you might think that more rain would be a good thing for our parched planet, but it's not that simple. You see, climate change is like a fickle DJ, cranking up the volume in some areas while turning it down in others. That means some regions are getting drenched with more rain than they can handle, while others are left high and dry. For example, in some areas, climate change is causing more frequent and severe droughts. Imagine your backyard turning into a scene from a spaghetti western, complete with tumbleweeds and a thirst for water. Not exactly the oasis you had in mind, huh? These droughts can lead to water shortages, leaving people, plants, and animals parched and desperate for a drink. On the flip side, other regions are experiencing more frequent and severe floods. It's like Mother Nature went overboard with her watering can, leaving a soggy mess in her wake. These floods can wreak havoc on homes, infrastructure, and ecosystems, not to mention leaving you with a serious case of wet socks. But wait, there's more. These changes in precipitation patterns don't just impact our fashion choices, they can also have serious implications for food security. You see, agriculture depends on a delicate balance of rain and sunshine to grow the crops that feed our ever-hungry world. But when that balance gets thrown off, it can lead to crop failures and food shortages. It's like trying to bake a cake with the wrong ingredients. The results can be disastrous and not very tasty. So, what can we do to navigate this topsy-turvy world of precipitation patterns? Well, one solution is to invest in water-smart agriculture, which focuses on using water more efficiently and sustainably. It's like giving our planet a much-needed upgrade to its plumbing system. Another option is to support climate change mitigation efforts, like reducing greenhouse gas emissions and investing in renewable energy. After all, the best way to deal with a problem is to tackle it at its source, right? Biodiversity is like Earth's version of a blockbuster movie cast, featuring countless species playing different roles to create a balanced and thriving ecosystem. However, climate change is turning out to be a less than stellar director, causing chaos on the ecological stage. You see, as temperatures rise and precipitation patterns shift, many species are finding themselves in a game of musical habitats, scrambling to find a suitable home. Some critters are moving to cooler or wetter areas, while others are experiencing changes in their population sizes. It's like an ecological roller coaster, but with fewer safety harnesses. Now, you might wonder why these changes matter. Well, let me tell you, the impacts of climate change on biodiversity can have major consequences for our planet's ecosystems. You see, each species plays a specific role, kind of like the pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. When some pieces go missing or change shape, the entire picture can become distorted. For example, when climate change affects the distribution and abundance of key species, it can lead to ecological disruptions. Imagine a beehive without bees or a forest without trees, not the most productive or enjoyable places to be, right? These disruptions can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem, impacting everything from food chains to nutrient cycling. But wait, there's more. Losing biodiversity doesn't just mess with our planet's ecological balance, it also puts important ecosystem services at risk. These services are like nature's gift to humanity, providing us with things like clean air, fresh water, and fertile soil. When biodiversity takes a hit, so do these valuable services, leaving us to pick up the tab. So, what can we do to protect Earth's biodiversity from the clutches of climate change? Well, one solution is to support conservation efforts, like creating protected areas and promoting sustainable land use practices. It's like giving our planet's species a VIP backstage pass to a safe and thriving habitat. Another option is to take action against climate change itself by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and transitioning to a more sustainable, low-carbon economy. After all, the best way to solve a problem is to address its root cause, right? turning our attention to agriculture and how climate change is shaking things up like a smoothie in a blender. So put on your farming hats and let's dig into this fertile topic. You see, agriculture is kind of like a high-stakes dance routine, with farmers relying on the perfect combination of rain, sunshine, and temperature to grow their crops. But climate change is cutting in like an uninvited dance partner, throwing off the rhythm and leaving our food systems in a bit of a pickle. First up, we've got changes in precipitation patterns. Remember how we talked about climate change being a fickle DJ, cranking up the volume in some areas while turning it down in others? Well, that's causing some regions to suffer from droughts, while others are getting drenched with floods. Neither situation is great for farming, as crops need just the right amount of water to thrive. Next, we have rising temperatures. Picture your favorite ice cream cone melting under the scorching sun. That's kind of what's happening to our crops. Higher temperatures can lead to reduced crop yields, as plants struggle to grow and reproduce in the heat. It's like trying to run a marathon in a sauna, not exactly a recipe for success. But wait, there's more. Extreme weather events like hurricanes, floods, and droughts are also causing havoc on our agricultural systems. These events can damage infrastructure, destroy crops, and disrupt supply chains. It's like an uninvited guest showing up at your dinner party and flipping the table, not a pleasant experience for anyone involved. And let's not forget about soil degradation. Climate change is messing with the delicate balance of nutrients and organic matter in our soil, making it harder for plants to grow. It's like trying to build a sandcastle with dry, crumbly sand. You're not going to get very far. Finally, we have the increased risk of pests and diseases. As temperatures rise and precipitation patterns shift, pests and diseases are spreading to new areas, causing headaches for farmers and threatening our food supply. It's like a never-ending game of whack-and-mole, with new challenges popping up just as you think you've got things under control. So, what can we do to protect our agricultural systems from the impacts of climate change? Well, one solution is to invest in climate-smart agriculture, which focuses on using resources more efficiently, adapting to changing conditions, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's like giving our food systems a much-needed tune-up to keep them running smoothly in the face of adversity. Another option is to support efforts to mitigate climate change, like transitioning to renewable energy sources and reducing our carbon footprint. After all, the best way to deal with a problem is to tackle it at its source, right? Climate change is already having significant impacts on our agricultural systems, putting our food supply at risk. But with some innovation, determination, and a good pair of gardening gloves, we can rise to the challenge and create a more resilient, sustainable future for our dinner plates. Now, imagine you're lounging on a beach, soaking up the sun. Sounds lovely, right? Well, not when it comes to climate change. Rising temperatures are leading to more heat-related illnesses, like heat stroke, dehydration, and even, sadly, fatalities. Picture our bodies as delicate ice sculptures, struggling to maintain their cool as the mercury rises. It's a sweaty situation, folks. But it's not just the heat that's getting to us. With climate change comes an increase in respiratory diseases such as asthma and allergies. You see, warmer temperatures and higher CO2 levels make pollen go bonkers, like a DJ pumping out the beats at a pollen party. This airborne fiesta leaves allergy sufferers sneezing, wheezing, and wishing they could escape to a pollen-free paradise. And let's not forget about vector-borne diseases. You know, the ones transmitted by mosquitoes, ticks, and other pesky critters that make us itch just thinking about them. As climate change shifts temperature and precipitation patterns, these disease-carrying bugs are expanding their range, bringing unwelcome housewarming gifts like malaria, dengue fever, and Lyme disease to new neighborhoods. Now, you might be thinking, but surely, we're prepared for these health challenges, right? Well, not exactly. Our healthcare systems are like a game of Jenga. They're carefully balanced, but climate change is pulling out the pieces one by one, making it harder for us to respond to these growing health threats. For example, extreme weather events like floods and hurricanes can damage hospitals, disrupt medical supply chains, and displace vulnerable populations. It's like trying to put out a fire while juggling flaming torches, not an easy task. So, what can we do to safeguard our health in the face of climate change? Well, One approach is to invest in public health infrastructure, making sure our healthcare systems are robust and resilient enough to handle these emerging challenges. Think of it as upgrading your home security system to fend off a pesky raccoon that's discovered your trash cans. Another strategy is to focus on prevention, like reducing air pollution, improving access to clean water, and promoting healthy lifestyles. It's kind of like brushing your teeth every day to prevent cavities. A little effort goes a long way. And of course, we can't forget about the importance of addressing climate change itself. By reducing greenhouse gas emissions and transitioning to more sustainable ways of living, we can help slow down the warming of our planet and protect our health in the process. It's like hitting the brakes on a runaway train before it careens off a cliff. the economic impacts of climate change, where we'll find out why taking action is like investing in a snazzy new bike that pays for itself in the long run. Buckle up, because we're in for an eye-opening ride. Picture the Earth's economy as a colossal Jenga tower. Climate change comes along, and it's like a rowdy toddler yanking out pieces left and right. This means our beloved Jenga tower, aka the global economy, becomes wobbly, and it'll take some serious skill and cash to keep it standing. So, let's talk about those infrastructure damages. Imagine your favorite beachside boardwalk. Now, picture a crazy storm surge that swallows it whole. Repairing that boardwalk or any other damaged structure can cost a fortune, and that's just one example. With climate change, we'll see more intense storms, which means more infrastructure repairs, and you guessed it, more moolah. And speaking of extreme weather events, imagine trying to work outdoors during a heat wave that feels like you're trapped inside a pizza oven. Or picture a farmer's field turning into a slip and slide during a flood. Reduced productivity due to extreme weather events is like the Earth's economy hitting the snooze button. Everything slows down, and it can take time to recover. Now, let's chat about healthcare costs. Picture your body like a well-oiled machine. When temperatures soar and pollution gets worse, that machine starts sputtering and coughing. Climate change can worsen health issues, which means more visits to the doctor, more medications, and a higher price tag for healthcare. So, you might ask, why should we bother doing anything about climate change? Well, let me tell you a little secret. The costs of inaction are like buying a lifetime supply of pizza, only to find out it's all pineapple and anchovies. Yuck! In other words, it's way more expensive than the cost of taking action against climate change. Think about it this way: investing in clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and climate-resilient infrastructure is like buying an all-you-can-eat buffet of your favorite foods. Sure, it might cost a bit upfront, but it pays off in the long run by avoiding those disastrous impacts of climate change we just talked about. Picture indigenous communities as expert tightrope walkers, skillfully balancing their way through an ever-changing environment using traditional knowledge and practices. But climate change is like a mischievous wind, threatening to blow them off balance and disrupt their delicate dance with nature. One of the most profound impacts of climate change on indigenous peoples is the loss of cultural heritage. You see, these communities have rich histories, stories, and traditions passed down through generations like a treasured heirloom. However, as climate change alters their landscapes and ecosystems, these cultural treasures are being threatened, like a precious family photo album damaged by a flood. As climate change makes certain areas uninhabitable due to sea level rise, extreme weather events, or resource scarcity, indigenous peoples may be forced to leave their ancestral lands. This is like having to abandon your childhood home, filled with memories and connections, because it's no longer safe to live there. Indigenous communities often have deep connections to the land and its resources, relying on them for their livelihoods, food, and spiritual well-being. But as climate change shakes things up, these communities are like tightrope walkers performing without a safety net, making them more susceptible to the risks associated with a changing climate. So what can we do to support indigenous peoples in the face of climate change? Well, one approach is to involve them in decision-making processes and climate change adaptation planning. By respecting and valuing their traditional knowledge and expertise, we can work together to build resilience and preserve their rich cultures. Climate change is affecting developing countries. Think of them as players in a soccer game, but climate change keeps changing the rules, making it harder to play. Let's find out why it's tough for them and what we can do to help. First, these countries rely a lot on farming. But with climate change, the weather can be super unpredictable, like trying to guess what your best friend will wear tomorrow. This makes it hard for farmers to grow enough food for everyone. Next, developing countries often don't have the money, tools, or fancy buildings needed to deal with climate change. It's like trying to build a cool treehouse with only a few sticks and some tape. It's tough. So, what can we do to help? We can work together with these countries, share our knowledge and tools, and support them in finding ways to handle the challenges of climate change. It's like being a good teammate and helping each other win the game. Cities are like a game of climate change dodgeball where floods, hurricanes, and heat waves are all hurtling towards them. When these events hit, they can cause colossal damage to infrastructure and disrupt the daily lives of millions of people. Imagine if your morning commute involved swimming through flooded streets or braving sweltering heat waves. Not ideal, right? Next, let's talk about air and water quality. It's no secret that cities aren't exactly known for their pristine air and crystal clear water. When climate change enters the scene, it's like someone adding a layer of smog and pollution to an already dirty painting. Warmer temperatures can increase ground-level ozone, making the air quality even worse for our lungs. And let's not forget water quality. When floods occur, they can wash pollutants into rivers and water supplies, turning them into a nasty cocktail that's bad news for both humans and wildlife. Now, onto the pesky issue of disease. No, I'm not talking about the common cold. Climate change can boost the risk of diseases in urban areas. Picture the city as a giant, all-you-can-eat buffet for mosquitoes carrying diseases like dengue or Zika. Warmer temperatures and increased precipitation can create the perfect breeding grounds for these little pests, turning cities into disease hotspots. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. Just like a skilled DJ, cities can remix their approach to urban planning to make them more resilient to climate change. This can include things like planting more trees to keep temperatures cool, building flood-resistant infrastructure, and implementing policies to reduce pollution. By taking action, cities can keep the party going, even in the face of climate change. All right, it's homework time. But don't worry, I'm here to make sure you have a blast while learning about climate change. So, grab your favorite pen, put on your thinking cap, and let's dive into some eco-tastic questions. What are some of the environmental, social, and economic impacts of climate change and global warming, and how do they affect our planet and our communities? Think of this like a climate change pizza with environmental, social, and economic toppings. Your task is to slice up some examples of each impact and explain how they're messing with our planet and communities like a spilled soda at a party. How do rising temperatures and changing weather patterns affect ecosystems and biodiversity? And what can be done to mitigate these impacts? Imagine Earth's ecosystems as a delicate recipe, and climate change is throwing in random ingredients like a chaotic chef. Describe how these unwanted ingredients, rising temperatures and changing weather, are affecting ecosystems and biodiversity, and brainstorm some ways we can rescue this dish. How do rising sea levels and increased flooding affect coastal communities, and what can be done to protect them? Picture coastal communities as sandcastles at the beach, and climate change is like an incoming tide. Explore the challenges these sandcastles face due to rising sea levels and increased flooding, and suggest some nifty strategies to keep them from getting washed away. What are some of the health impacts of climate change and global warming, and how can we mitigate these impacts to protect human health? Climate change is like a sneaky villain that messes with our health. Unmask some of its health-related crimes, heat-related illnesses, respiratory diseases, etc., and come up with superhero-worthy plans to protect our health from this dastardly foe. What are some resources that you can use to learn more about the effects of climate change and global warming, and the ways in which we can mitigate their impacts on our planet and our communities? Time to embark on an eco-information treasure hunt. Search for some valuable resources, websites, books, documentaries, etc., to help you become a climate change know-it-all and discover ways to combat its impacts. Now, go forth and conquer this homework like the eco-champions you are. And remember, learning about climate change is not just about facts and figures. It's about understanding how we can work together to protect our planet and our communities for future generations. Good luck, and may the force of sustainability be with you.